Chapter 9-11. Until Luo Qingtong's figure disappeared in front of them, the people around the Berserkers' cave didn't react to what was going on. Especially the people of the Dragon Regiment. Luo Qingtong brought the top powerhouses of the Guiyuan Regiment, aggressively, just to enter the Berserkers' cave? The people of the Guiyuan Regiment and the crowd of onlookers who came to watch the show couldn't accept it in their hearts. F***ck. What happened to forcing the people of the Dragon Regiment to bow their heads? What kind of play was Luo Qingtong singing? What did she want to do in the Berserkers' cave? Did she think that if she went in to cultivate, she would be invincible in the world and scare the people of the Dragon Regiment into bowing their heads and apologizing to her and returning the plundered resources? Everyone thought so, and suddenly you stared at each other. I stared at you, I stared at you, I stared at you. For a while they didn't know what Luo Qingtong was doing. Some people have already laughed loudly. They said that Luo Qingtong was boasting too much, and now she had no choice but to hide in the Berserkers' cave and not dare to come out. Su Xiaoxiao and the others listened to a burst of anger in their hearts. They absolutely believe in Luo Qingtong. It was absolutely impossible for the boss to speak without thinking. If she said that she wanted the people of the Dragon Regiment to bow their heads and bear the consequences, then she would definitely do it. Thinking of the various miracles of Luo Qingtong since they met her, Su Xiaoxiao and the others simply ignored the ridicule. They firmly believed that when Luo Qingtong came out of the Berserkers' cave, these people would know what it meant to be slapped in the face. Is just that what was the boss going to do? Just when everyone was making all kinds of guesses and doubts, Luo Qingtong had already started fighting in the Berserkers' cave. Boom boom boom. One after another, ferocious beasts rushed towards Luo Qingtong from all directions. The so-called Berserkers' cave was a place to train students' actual combat ability. In this place there was only fighting. In the gloomy cavern, all kinds of ferocious beasts formed by the fluctuations of the formation pounced on the trainee in the center from all directions according to the level of strength and difficulty chosen by the students. Students wouldn't die here, but they would be seriously injured. When Luo Qingtong entered, she chose the normal difficulty. The ferocious beasts she faced were only at the peak of the martial king realm. After all, she didn't come here to train herself. Bang bang bang. Looking at the ferocious beasts pouncing towards her from all directions, Luo Qingtong suddenly took a step forward. In the next second, the sword in her hand flashed, and the wind and thunder sword appeared in her hand. She instantly attacked. Boom. The girl's eyes flickered with blood-red light. In an instant, her entire body shot out. Those peak martial king realm ferocious beasts that were charging at her were not her doing at all. In an instant, Luo Qingtong tore a huge hole in the airtight encirclement of ferocious beasts. Under such circumstances, the blood-red light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered to the extreme. In her sight, the ferocious beasts formed by the fluctuations of the formation instantly turned into invisible auras when the energy dissipated. They were led to a certain place by a force. Found it. Seeing the direction of the fog, Luo Qingtong's figure flashed out of the huge hole in the encirclement of ferocious beasts in an instant and followed the fog straight forward. Chapter 9-12. The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered as she rushed forward quickly. Along the way, no matter how many peak martial king realm ferocious beasts were transformed and rushed towards her, they were all sent flying by her. Soon, her figure appeared at the place where the invisible aura had completely disappeared. Looking at the stone wall in front of her, which seemed to be no different from any other place, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Bang! She swept her sword and instantly killed all the ferocious beasts that had rushed over behind her. In the next second, she raised her hand, and the aura of the badge was instantly sent into the core of the stone wall. If anyone was there, they would discover that the aura of the badge belonged to the dragon group. The bloody light in Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered as the stone wall in front of her was completely analyzed by her eyes. The core of the stone wall was revealed. Luo Qingtong's finger pointed at it without any hindrance. Buzz. As Luo Qingtong pointed at it, the huge formation that was completely embedded in the stone wall seemed to be enraged and revealed itself with a bang. In an instant, with a bang, the level of the ferocious beasts that were transformed in the surroundings changed. The figures of the sacred beasts were all revealed. However, Luo Qingtong knew what would happen before she sent the aura of the dragon group's badge. Before the formation was enraged, she had already left Berserk Battle's cave. Swish. Her figure disappeared in Berserk Battle's cave, leaving only the enraged formation and the figures of the sacred beasts that were constantly revealed. Okay. After doing all this, Luo Qingtong clapped her hands, put away the wind and thunder sword, and stepped out of the door of Berserk Battle's cave. Outside, the people of the dragon group were wantonly mocking Su Xiaoxiao and the others. Yo. You said that we would be responsible for the consequences. Is this what you mean? Ah. I think that your boss Luo Qingtong won't dare to come out of Berserk Battle's cave today, right? Shameless. Yes. Ah. The group of Dragon Corps members laughed loudly. From their point of view, Luo Qingtong had completely gone overboard with her boasting. She didn't know how to end the situation. What heavenly evil group? I think we should just call them Big Talk Team Trash Team. A group of people mocked loudly. Alright, didn't your boss give us an ultimatum? I don't think you should give any ultimatum. Go to our dragon group's base and kneel down. Maybe I won't be beaten up so badly. Haha. The group of people laughed wantonly. At this moment, Luo Qingtong stepped out of Mad Warrior's cave. Really? Sure. I will remember this kneel for you. Luo Qingtong said as her gaze swept over the group of people from the dragon group who were laughing the loudest. In addition, the resources you need to return will be increased tenfold. Xiao, remember them. Chapter 9:13. Bang. A middle-level member of the dragon group who had just stepped into the berserker's cave was blasted out in an instant. He fell to the ground with a thud and fainted with a scream. Heng? Captain. Seeing this scene, the members of the dragon group were stunned and then hurriedly rushed over. The surrounding people were also surprised. Even the members of the Guiyuan group who came with Luo Qingtong and were ruthlessly ridiculed by the members of the dragon group were stunned. What's going on? Everyone looked at the member of the dragon group who was ejected out of the berserker's cave in surprise. Wasn't this too strange? This situation. Didn't it only happen when you overestimated yourself and challenged a training difficulty that was much higher than your own strength? And looking at the other party's appearance. Everyone looked at the member of the dragon group who was lying on the ground. Almost all the bones in his body were broken and his whole body was dripping with blood. What kind of difficulty did he choose to be beaten up like this as soon as he stepped in? Was this member of the dragon group crazy with joy? Did he choose the wrong difficulty when he chose it? Everyone thought so. However, the following situation was completely beyond their expectations. Bang bang bang. One by one, the members of the dragon group were blasted out of the berserker's cave. All of them were seriously injured and on the verge of death. Their appearance was more miserable than the other. At this time, it was impossible to say that it was a coincidence. Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong in shock. They didn't know how she did it. Could it be that Luo Qingtong could change the Holy Court's cultivation array? But how was this possible? That array was set up by experts of the Sage Realm or even above the Sage Realm. With Luo Qingtong's strength, how could she change it? In fact, Luo Qingtong indeed didn't have the ability to change the array. But she didn't need to change it. She only needed to find the core of the array and then poke the aura of the dragon group's badge on it to anger the core of the array. In this way, as long as the members of the dragon group who carried the aura of the badge entered the array, they would be treated as intruders and killed at the highest level of difficulty. The dragon group's people used the excuse of not letting Su Xiaoxiao come into contact with the cultivation facilities to threaten Xuanhu and the others to take out the cultivation resources. Luo Qingtong naturally wanted them to have a taste of this. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. As I said, if you don't return the resources you've plundered after noon, you'll have to bear the consequences. Luo Qingtong looked at them indifferently. Now, do you know that I'm not joking? Even the mentors of the Saint Academy couldn't find any clues about what Luo Qingtong had done. Did the dragon group think that they were the only ones who knew how to play dirty? Luo Qingtong sneered coldly. Let's go. On to the next one. The Berserker's Cave was just the beginning. Today, Luo Qingtong was going to walk through the entire training grounds of the Sky Palace. Let the people of the dragon group not even think about touching a single cultivation facility. By the way, leave one of you here. You can start taking over the territory of the Berserker's Cave. Before leaving, Luo Qingtong said indifferently to the Guiyuan group's people who had followed her here. At this moment they were completely dumbfounded. Ah, what? The people of the Guiyuan group had long been stunned by Luo Qingtong's means. Chapter 9:14. But inside, weren't they unable to go in? Their gazes swept past the people from the Dragon Regiment who were lying on the ground with serious injuries. That's only for the people from the Dragon Regiment. The others are fine. Luo Qingtong glanced at them and said. Otherwise, why would she ask Ma Chenyi to lend her some people, and these were the top geniuses and backbone members of the Guiyuan Regiment? Wasn't it to take over the territories of the Dragon Regiment? Luo Qingtong knew that the Dragon Regiment occupied a lot of territories in the Heavenly Hall's training grounds. She was willing to share these with the people from the Guiyuan regiment. The Guiyuan regiment provided people and she provided strength. Each took what they needed. After all, Luo Qingtong didn't have any subordinates now. Moreover, to take over the ownership of these places from the Dragon Regiment, the people from the Guiyuan Regiment were the most suitable. In this way, the other student forces wouldn't be unwilling and jealous. Luo Qingtong had always made the best use of everything. She gave Mo Chenai a big gift to save effort and reduce trouble, wasn't it? Yes. Thank you, Miss Qingtong. Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, the people from the Guiyuan Regiment instantly reacted. Soon, they understood from Luo Qingtong's words what a big gift this was to the Guiyuan Regiment. It was equivalent to the people from the Guiyuan Regiment getting a bunch of territories from the Dragon Regiment with their bare hands. And the people from the Dragon Regiment couldn't say anything. They looked at Luo Qingtong in shock. They thought that Luo Qingtong wanted to borrow the power of the Guiyuan Regiment to fight against the Dragon Regiment. In the end, Luo Qingtong easily took action and suppressed the people from the Dragon Regiment. Not only that, she really gave the Guiyuan Regiment a big gift. Thinking of the benefits of getting the ownership of these training grounds, the core members of the Guiyuan Regiment felt a burst of excitement. They looked at Luo Qingtong with shock and shame. After all, before this, none of them believed Luo Qingtong's words. They thought that the big gift she said was just to look good on her own face. Now his face had been slapped swollen. Everyone was so embarrassed that they wished they could dig a hole in the ground and bury themselves. However, when they thought about how the Dragon Mercenary Group's face was even more swollen than theirs, the Guiyuan Mercenary Group members immediately felt better. Those who were still gloating over the Dragon Group's misfortune had really kicked an iron plate this time. She thought that Luo Qingtong's people were easy to bully. She was afraid that she would be slapped in the face so hard that even her mother wouldn't recognize her. At the same time, he rejoiced that the Crown Prince was truly wise. If it wasn't for the fact that the Crown Prince wholeheartedly believed in Luo Qingtong's ability, their Guiyuan clique would have really missed this opportunity. Thinking like this, everyone respectfully escorted Luo Qingtong away after leaving behind a core member of the Guiyuan Regiment. After they left, the onlookers finally came back to their senses and burst into an uproar. Oh my God, the development of this matter is simply beyond everyone's expectations. He originally thought that Luo Qingtong would not be able to do anything in front of the Dragon Group. Even if he used the strength of the Guiyuan Group, he might not be able to make the people of the Dragon Group bow their heads. He didn't expect her to have such means. In this way, the people of the Dragon Group would have no choice but to bow their heads, right? Oh my God, there's a good show to watch. A group of people excitedly chased after the direction that Luo Qingtong and the others left. At first, the people of the Dragon Group didn't believe that Luo Qingtong had such means to make them unable to enter the Wild Battle Cave to train. Chapter 9:15. But when the core member of the Guiyuan clan went in unscathed, and the others did the same, they were speechless. Each and every one of them was shocked. This was too scary. Luo Qingtong actually only prevented the people of the Dragon Regiment from entering these training facilities. Then wouldn't the people of the Dragon Regiment be much weaker than others in terms of strength improvement in the future? Not only that, Luo Qingtong didn't seem to be only preparing to attack the Berserkers' cave. She was also preparing to do the same to the other training facilities. My God, this was a big matter against the Dragon Regiment. The faces of the people of the Dragon Regiment were pale, and they no longer had the arrogance and ridicule that they had when facing Luo Qingtong. Those who said that Luo Qingtong was crazy and a coward hiding in the Berserkers' cave and didn't dare to come out, turned pale as if they were painted with a layer of paint. Thinking of the words that Luo Qingtong said to them before coming out, their legs trembled. Something big happened. Something big really happened. My God, this Luo Qingtong was really a monster. The group of people rolled and crawled towards the Dragon Regiment's base. Tong Hu and the rest were still waiting there with a group of core members of the Dragon Regiment for the arrival of Luo Qingtong and the people of the Guiyuan clan. But they didn't know that Luo Qingtong had directly brought people to the Sky Hall's training ground and cut off all their escape routes. How terrible was it to not be able to enter the training ground to train? That would affect their strength improvement and promotion in the future. Ruthless. Luo Qingtong's move was really too ruthless. I'm afraid that Tong Hu and the rest wouldn't be able to withstand it after hearing it. After all, in this world where the strong were respected, why did they work so hard to get into the holy court of the Empire of Qin, join the Dragon Regiment, and rely on Her Royal Highness Wu Wang? Wasn't it to improve their strength? To stand above tens of thousands of people? With Luo Qingtong's move, it would be difficult for them to improve their strength. My God, this was a big matter. Deputy Regiment Leader. The group of people rushed to the dragon group's encampment in panic. At the same time, Tong Hu Mo Yufei Yuanma and the others were waiting for Luo Qingtong's arrival. They already knew that Ma Chenyi had agreed to lend people to Luo Qingtong. In their opinion, Luo Qingtong didn't have any power to rely on. She would definitely use her connections to intimidate others and lead the Guiyuan regiment to attack them. At that time, they would be able to legitimately attack the Guiyuan clique. As for that Luo Qingtong who dared to provoke their dragon group and sent people to break their dragon group's plaque, they would not let her off either. Yuan Mo, don't say that I didn't give you face. Tong Hu's face was cold. What your fiancé did was trampling on the face of our dragon core and His Highness King Wu. She must pay the price for this. Let me give you a piece of advice. If you can't keep an eye on this kind of woman, then quickly divorce her. That way you won't be embarrassed. Tong Hu and Yuan Mo didn't get along well in private. Both of them were highly valued by Mo Chenxian, but Yuan Mo's talent and potential were higher than Tong Hu's. Therefore Tong Hu naturally didn't like him. This time, when Luo Qingtong came to cause trouble, Tong Hu didn't need Yuan Mo to come himself. He sent people to call him over himself. It was all for the sake of ridiculing him. Chapter 9:16. His tone was full of sarcasm, and he made up his mind to teach Luo Qingtong a lesson when she arrived. He would take it as a slap to Yuanma's face. Hearing his words, Yuanma's expression turned ugly. He didn't expect Luo Qingtong to do such a thing. He thought that she was a clever girl. But now, it seemed that what Luo Qingtong did was extremely stupid. Not only that, she even hooked up with the crown prince. No wonder she broke off the engagement with him. Thinking of this, the anger in Yuanma's heart surged. Looking at the anger on his face, Mo Yufei and Su Jinhue felt a burst of pride. That Luo Qingtong was simply too stupid. She actually took the initiative to go against the dragon regiment and even ruined the reputation of the dragon regiment. Great, now she was completely disliked by senior brother, right? When she comes later, they will humiliate her and teach her a lesson to vent their anger for themselves. Thinking of this, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. In terms of rejection and disgust towards Luo Qingtong, the two of them had the same thoughts. Just as Mo Yufei and Su Jinhue were excitedly waiting for Luo Qingtong to arrive so that they could teach her a lesson, a group of people ran over from afar. Deputy Regiment Commander. Bad news. A group of people from the Dragon Regiment rushed over from Berserker's Cave, and they were out of breath. Bad news. Deputy Regiment Commander. Luo Qingtong she. What happened to Luo Qingtong? Looking at their appearance, Tong Hu frowned, but he didn't care very much. In his opinion, Luo Qingtong was nothing to be afraid of. Even if she had the support of the Guiyuan regiment and the Crown Prince, she couldn't do anything. However, when everyone finished speaking, he realized that Luo Qingtong was not incapable of overturning the situation at all. She had clearly poked a hole in the sky. What did you say? Bang. The chair behind Tong Hu fell over, but he didn't notice it at all. You're saying that Luo Qingtong did something in Berserk Warrior's Cave that caused all of us from the Dragon Corps to be unable to enter? He was heavily injured and forced out as soon as he entered. The veins on Tiger Cub's forehead bulged. He grabbed the collar of the Dragon Group member in front of him and pulled him in front of him, shouting in disbelief. That's right. That Dragon Squad member was almost strangled to death by Tiger Cub's enormous strength. Trembling with fear, he said with a long face, Vice Commander, we've tried many times. None of them could enter. Everyone that entered was a serious injury. Everyone else is fine. Vice Commander, you should go and take a look. Luo Qingtong was still in the Sky Hall's training ground. It was said that he had to go to other places. I don't know. Before he could finish his words, another group of people scrambled over from not far away. Vice Commander, bad news. Luo Qingtong brought people to Gale Cave, and none of our people can enter. As soon as this was said, there was a dead silence. When Mo Yufei and Su Jinhue heard this, they immediately jumped up. That's impossible. How could Luo Qingtong do such a thing? Their voices were sharp. The two of them were just thinking about how to torture Luo Qingtong later, but they didn't expect to be slapped in the face before they even saw the latter. Chapter 9:17. Yuanma was also in disbelief. The group of people rushed to the Heavenly Hall's training ground. Along the way they kept receiving news about Luo Qingtong. More and more people from the Dragon Regiment were being chased out of the training ground. The veins on Tong Hu's forehead were about to burst. Needless to say, Mo Yufei and Su Jinhue were screaming in their hearts. How could this be? How could this be? How could Luo Qingtong do such a thing? They were waiting to see Luo Qingtong make a fool of herself. They were not waiting for the dragon regiment to be laughed at. The two men's palms were bleeding from their nails. Mo Yufei even raised her whip a few times, almost seriously injuring a few members of the dragon regiment who rushed back to report the news. When the group of people arrived at the Heavenly Hall's training ground, Luo Qingtong was about to leave after touring the most important training grounds. The two parties met at the gate. Tong Hu and the rest were instantly enraged. Luo Qingtong. Mo Yufei pulled out the whip in her hand and was about to hit her. At this moment, the people from the Guiyuan Society stood out and blocked Luo Qingtong. Princess Yufei, I beg you to stop. Otherwise don't blame us for being rude. Mo Yufei's whip was held by a core member of the Guiyuan Society. She was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. She pointed at them and said angrily, "How dare you hit me? His Highness the Crown Prince ordered us to protect Miss Qingtong." Princess Yufei sorry? The people from the Guiyuan Society said expressionlessly. They were all outstanding students in the heaven stage. There was no need for them to bow down in front of Mo Yufei and the rest. This was the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, not the palace of the Empire of Qin. The reason why they gave Mo Yufei some face was because she was Ma Chenye's sister. However, if the other party insisted on dealing with Luo Qingtong, they would not be polite. After all, Luo Qingtong's ability was worthy of their respect and protection. Not to mention that the other party had given them and the crown prince such a great gift. In comparison, Mo Yufei, the royal princess who stood on the side of the dragon group, was not as important as Luo Qingtong. Mo Yufei didn't expect that the people of Guiyuan group would be so protective of Luo Qingtong. The latter was shamelessly pestering her crown prince brother. Shouldn't they hate her? How is she as good as elder sister Qingwei? Are you all blind? Mo Yufei stomped her feet in anger. Could it be that the crown prince had taken a liking to this woman? She was furious, but Luo Qingtong was too lazy to pay attention to her. Just now, if it weren't for the people of Guiyuan clique standing up in time, Luo Qingtong would have already grabbed Mo Yufei's whip and slapped her face. Her gaze swept past Mo Yufei and fixed directly on Tong Hu. She raised her eyebrows and said, "What, is the dragon group rushing to apologize to us? But you're late." Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. "It's been more than 2 hours since noon. The amount of resources you have to return will be doubled." Luo Qingtong. Tong Hu could no longer hold back his anger. "Don't be too proud. Don't think that you can force us to bow down just because you used some unknown method to disrupt the array in the training ground." Chapter 9:18. As soon as Tong Hu's words came out, everyone around them was stunned. Then Mo Yufei's laughter rang out at once. "Ah, how could I forget this?" As she spoke, she raised her head and looked at Luo Qingtong proudly. She laughed loudly and said, "Luo Qingtong, do you think you can use this to threaten the dragon regiment? It's a pity that once the mentors are here, your threat will be useless." Mo Yufei was extremely proud when she said this. She didn't know what method Luo Qingtong used to prevent the dragon regiment from entering the cultivation facilities. However, this was different from the dragon regiment threatening Su Xiaoxiao and the others to prevent them from entering the cultivation facilities. Luo Qingtong had changed the array formations inside. As long as the mentors changed them back, what Luo Qingtong did would be useless at all. They were also frightened just now, so they didn't think too much about it. Now that they thought about it, Luo Qingtong's threat wasn't that big of a deal. As Mo Yufei thought of this, she raised her head and looked at Luo Qingtong proudly. The anger and embarrassment just now were no longer there. The dragon regiment was the same. After hearing Tong Hu's words, their hearts relaxed and they weren't so frightened anymore. Su Jinhua was the same. She heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Luo Qingtong with a smug and gloating gaze. Luo Qingtong was indeed a little capable, but that was all. She wanted to force the dragon regiment to bow down? She was dreaming. The group of people looked at Luo Qingtong and the others mockingly. Everyone in the Guiyuan regiment also felt their hearts skip a beat. They looked at Luo Qingtong with a slightly worried gaze. They had just taken over the dragon regiment's territory. Nothing would go wrong, right? Luo Qingtong should have thought about this before she made a move, right? Everyone thought so, but they weren't very sure. After all, how could Luo Qingtong's ability be compared to the mentors? Not to mention that the array formation master was a saint-level spiritual array master. His ability to set up arrays was first class. Even if Luo Qingtong did something to the array, he should be able to see it. In this case, if the array formation master repaired it, everything Luo Qingtong did would really be in vain. What a pity. Everyone in the Xuanhuan regiment felt a little regretful. Luo Qingtong's method was really good. Although they didn't know how she did it, she was able to do it. Unfortunately, the members of the dragon group reacted too quickly and actually thought of looking for a mentor. As for the reason that there was a problem with the formation, no one could find any fault with it. After all, the Sacred Academy didn't care about the fights between students, but they had to take care of the problems with the cultivation array. Everyone shook their heads as they thought of this. For a moment, no one was optimistic about Luo Qingtong. Only Su Xiaoxiao and others held their heads and chests high. They believed that Luo Qingtong absolutely had a way and wouldn't be suppressed by the people in the dragon regiment. Since the girl met them, she had never done anything that she wasn't sure of. This time should be no exception. They were full of confidence, but in the eyes of the people in the dragon regiment, it was indescribably ironic. Humph! Wait until the array division master arrives, then you'll know what it means to be useless. Mo Yufei sneered in her heart and proudly played with the new jade whip in her hand. Luo Qingtong didn't bother to pay attention to them at all. Chapter 919. The group stood at the entrance of Sky Hall's training grounds, waiting for the formation department's head teacher to arrive. The latter didn't make them wait for long. He rushed over as soon as he received the news. "Where's the problem with the cultivation formation?" asked the formation department's head teacher. There was another old man who came with him. "Teacher. Father." Seeing the old man come with the formation department's head teacher, Yuanma and Su Jinyue went up to greet him. "Amen." The Seoul Institute's head teacher lightly grunted. His gaze swept across the crowd before landing on Luo Qingtong. "You're Luo Qingtong?" Last time at the plaza, when Luo Qingtong came back, the Seoul Institute's head teacher wasn't there, so he didn't recognize Luo Qingtong. This time he was playing chess with the formation department's head teacher. When he heard about this, he came over. He sized up the red-clothed, peerlessly beautiful girl in front of him. The haze in his eyes grew heavier. The Seoul Institute's head teacher knew of his daughter's infatuation with Yuanma. He was happy to see this happen. However, Yuanma was unwilling to cancel the engagement. Although he admired Yuanma's loyal and trustworthy character, he felt that he was worthy of his daughter. At the same time, he didn't waste his cultivation. After all, who would want to raise an ingrate? However, wouldn't his daughter have no chance? The Seoul Institute's head teacher originally wanted to find a chance to talk to Yuanma in the future and have him take Luo Qingtong as his concubine. After all, with her status, how could she compare to his daughter? Not to mention worthy of Yuanma. But now, the Seoul Institute's head teacher looked at Luo Qingtong with a haze in his eyes. The girl's appearance and temperament were extraordinary. Just now, he heard from the Dragon Corps people that she actually prevented them from entering the training grounds. She wasn't weak and she had such ability. How could his daughter compare to her? The Seoul Institute's head teacher felt very uncomfortable. He looked at Luo Qingtong with an uneasy gaze. Yes. Seeing his gaze, Luo Qingtong raised her brows. What kind of gaze was that? Did he think she was blocking his daughter's path? "I'm really sorry. Yuanma was trash. Whoever wanted him could have him. She couldn't be bothered." Luo Qingtong also couldn't be bothered with him. After a casual reply, she looked at the formation department's head teacher. The latter also learned about most of the things from Tong Hu and the others. He looked at Luo Qingtong with surprise. This little girl is quite capable. The few teachers of the Grand Qin Sacred Academy had already left the ranks of the teachers of the academy. The elders and the supreme headmaster could discuss things with them, but they would never be able to order them around. It was even more impossible for them to force them to take sides. The great teacher of the Formation Institute was not on either side. Therefore, when he looked at Luo Qingtong, his eyes were filled with admiration. However, admiration was one thing. There was a problem with the Sky Hall's cultivation array. He still had to fix it. However, if Luo Qingtong really used her own ability to make changes to the Sacred Institute's formation, the formation department's head teacher felt that he could take her under his wing and help her. After all, such a gifted array formation genius was very rare. The formation department's head teacher thought as he walked to the nearest training ground. Chapter 920. Did Luo Qingtong think she could threaten them with such means? What a joke. Luo Qingtong, just wait for our dragon regiment's revenge. And you guys? Tong Hu looked at the Guiyuan regiment proudly and sneered. I hope His Highness the Crown Prince can give us an explanation when His Highness King Wu returns. Otherwise they could use this to attack His Highness the Crown Prince. His opponent would not be able to avoid the battle with His Highness King Wu. His Highness King Wu would replace His Highness the Crown Prince and become the king of the Empire of Qin Dynasty. Tong Hu's face was full of pride and pride. He had to thank Luo Qingtong. Acting so recklessly had given them the best opportunity to do so. However, the smile on his face didn't last long before it changed dramatically because of the words of the returning Array Institute Grand Master. There's nothing wrong with the array. The master of the array department walked around the many cultivation places and went to Wild Battle's cave. He did not find any problems and immediately returned with a frown. What? Tong Hu and the others' expressions changed when they heard the master of the array department. Mo Yufei, who was laughing so proudly that she couldn't close her mouth, and Su Jinyue, who was looking at Luo Qingtong coldly with gloating and complacent coldness in her eyes, also changed their expressions. Especially Mo Yufei, who directly put down her hand and screamed, "How is this possible?" Then the people from the dragon group said that they can't enter. The dragon regiment can't enter. The master of the array department had already confirmed this. He called a member of the dragon regiment to enter and found that as soon as he entered, he caused a violent reaction in the core of the array and was directly killed by the highest level of difficulty. However, there's nothing wrong with the array. He shook his head. Although the dragon regiment could not enter, the array was not changed by anyone and was not damaged in any way. However, this matter was not his responsibility. Obviously, Luo Qingtong's array skills were very strong. She must have done something to make the core of the array reject the aura of the dragon regiment. However, could the core of a sage stage array be so easily seen through? If this Luo Qingtong wasn't gifted and was a good seedling to learn the art of array formations, then she must have used some unknown method to find out the location of the core of the array formation. But no matter what it was, since there was no problem with the array formation, it was no longer under the control of the array formation master. At the thought of this, Tong Hu and the others' faces instantly turned ugly. Not to mention Mo Yufei and Su Jinyue. How was this possible? Luo Qingtong must have done something to the array. But the Grand Master of the array department wouldn't lie. Chapter 921. Master of the Array Formation Department, take a good look. How is this possible? If there's nothing wrong with the array formation, how could Luo Qingtong prevent the dragon regiment from entering? She shrieked. Although Tong Hu and the others didn't say anything, the look in their eyes said the same thing. I've checked everything. There's nothing wrong with the array formation. If you don't believe me, you can ask other instructors to take a look. The master of the array formation department said coldly. His face darkened when he was questioned. As soon as he said that, Mo Yufei stopped talking. Tong Hu and the others were even more speechless. If even the master of the array formation department couldn't see the problem, then no one else could. Haha. This time it was the Guiyuan clique's turn to laugh. Previously they had been on tenterhooks, afraid that everything Luo Qingtong had done would be in vain. After all, it was hard for the Guiyuan clique to vent their anger. Seeing that the dragon regiment had no other choice, they burst into laughter. Tong Hu, weren't you very capable just now? Keep shouting. The more arrogant Tong Hu and the others were, the more the Guiyuan clique felt relieved. Su Xiaoxiao and the others didn't even need to be mentioned. When the members of the dragon group threatened them to not let them use the cultivation facilities, their faces were extremely ugly and disgusting. Now retribution had come. Their laughter was loud, but Tong Hu and the others looked as if they had been slapped. Their faces were extremely pale. Luo Qingtong. Tong Hu's face was white and red as he looked at Luo Qingtong. He gritted his teeth and squeezed these words out. We'll compensate you. You've removed the restrictions on the dragon regiment, and you can't use this to threaten us in the future. Tong Hu didn't want to lower his head to Luo Qingtong at all. This was equivalent to putting his and the dragon regiment's faces on the ground and stepping on it. And it was him who stepped on it, to entertain others. But what could he do? Luo Qingtong controlled the Heavenly Hall's cultivation array formation and could prevent the dragon regiment from entering to cultivate. If he did not lower his head, the entire dragon group would immediately fall apart. At that time, even if he had 10 skins, it wouldn't be enough for His Highness King Wu to peel off. With that thought in mind, Tiger Cub could only lower his head in embarrassment. Hearing his words, Mo Yufei and Su Jinyue's faces darkened. The surrounding crowd had already exclaimed when they heard Tiger Cub's words. My God, Luo Qingtong actually did it? When the girl said that she wanted the dragon group to lower their heads and compensate, everyone thought she was joking. Except for Su Xiaoxiao and the others, no one believed that she could do it. Even Su Xiaoxiao and the others felt a little guilty. Who would have thought that Luo Qingtong actually did it? Furthermore, he hadn't even relied on the Guiyuan group's strength. Oh my god. She did it all by herself. This was simply... The people from the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin had never seen anyone who could force an organization to lower its head. Not to mention, the Dragon Group was a top-notch existence among the many student factions. This Luo Qingtong is really amazing. Previously, when Luo Qingtong returned, the Elders Guild and the Great Elder could only lower their heads. However, half of that was because Luo Qingtong was talented, and the other half was because she was lucky. But this time, she had truly displayed her ability in fighting against the Dragon Regiment. Chapter 922. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. Suddenly someone muttered, F***seek. The rumors kill people. Didn't they all say that Xuanhuan's fiancée was mediocre? How is she mediocre? **T. If Luo Qingtong was mediocre, then most people in this world could only say that they were trash. Here came the question. How did Xuanhuan dislike such a woman so much that he didn't even mention her? And why did this woman, who was rumored to love him so much, break off the engagement with him the moment she arrived? Is Xuanhuan blind? He must be blind. Someone couldn't help but exclaim. Instantly, everyone lowered their heads silently. The other party had spoken their minds. Xuanhuan had already clenched his fists the moment Tiger Cub lowered his head. He was filled with unspeakable regret and annoyance. If he had known that Luo Qingtong was so outstanding and capable, he wouldn't have treated her that way in the past. The girl was devastatingly beautiful, powerful, talented, and capable. She was as brilliant as the sun and as dazzling as the goddess of flames. Just by standing there, it was as if she had stolen everyone's attention. What was the reason for his disgust and disdain towards the other party to the extent that he missed out on such a treasure? Xuanhuan felt extremely vexed and regretted his actions. Just as his heart was in turmoil, Luo Qingtong's voice was heard. Sure. But those who participated in the bullying of my people must all kneel down and apologize. Otherwise, I won't accept your conditions. Luo Qingtong, you've gone too far. Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. Instantly, Su Jinyue and the others jumped up like cats whose tails had been stepped on. The people Luo Qingtong mentioned were Su Xiaoxiao and the others. And the idea to target Su Xiaoxiao and the others was her and Xuanhuan's idea. Luo Qingtong's words were clearly directed at them. Xuanhuan also looked at Luo Qingtong with an ugly expression. At this moment, the Seoul Institute's head teacher's voice rang out. Luo Qingtong, where it's possible to make mistakes, one should forgive them. The Dragon Group's people have already lowered their heads. Why do you have to be so overbearing? The Seoul Institute's head teacher didn't know what Luo Qingtong was talking about, but from his daughter and Xuanhuan's reactions, it was clear that they were involved. Under such circumstances, he naturally had to intervene in this matter. No matter what, he couldn't let his favorite student and daughter suffer such humiliation. However, Luo Qingtong didn't give him face. I'm sorry, head teacher. I don't know what you're talking about. Luo Qingtong looked at him with a cold smile. This time, I wanted to seek justice for my people. Perhaps using the word venting would be a better way to express what I mean. Luo Qingtong's hands were crossed in front of her. The young girl's fingers were like jade, as white as bamboo shoots in spring. Before anyone could react, the Seoul Institute's great teacher was instantly sent flying like a tree uprooted by a powerful storm. In an instant he crashed heavily onto the ground. Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened in shock. Heavens! The Seoul Institute's great teacher was sent flying by someone? He was an expert who surpassed the sage realm. Who could send him flying with a single move? Everyone's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Su Jinyue screamed and charged at the Seoul Institute's great teacher. Father. I'm fine. The Seoul Institute's great teacher stood up from the ground in a sorry state. Chapter 924. Who are you? Why are you casually interfering with the Sacred Academy's matters? The Seoul Academy's head teacher was furious as he looked at the person who had appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. As his voice rang out, everyone's gazes turned to that person. Luo Qingtong was no exception. She raised her head to look at the person in front of her, only to see an unfamiliar face. It wasn't Xianxia? When she saw his face, Luo Qingtong felt a wave of shock. When the man had grabbed her, she'd felt too familiar. She'd thought it was Xianxia who'd rushed over. Thank you. When she discovered that the other party wasn't the person she'd imagined, Luo Qingtong calmly struggled free of the other party's tightly clasped hand. When he felt the girl's warm skin leave his palm, the man standing in front of her narrowed his eyes. A dark light flashed through his eyes. No need to thank me. As he spoke, he gently rubbed his fingertips, suppressing the urge to pull the girl back to his side. Sir, you still haven't said who you are. Why are you interfering with the Sacred Academy's matters? When he saw that the other party was ignoring him and only talking to Luo Qingtong, the Soul Academy's head teacher angrily spoke again. If you don't speak, I'll take it that you're trespassing on the Sacred Academy. As soon as he finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out from the other side. He's the Sacred Academy's newly hired head instructor. As he spoke, the figures of the Supreme Dean, the Dean, and the others appeared before the crowd. Su Deheng, it's not that I want to criticize you, but as the Soul Academy's head teacher, how can you casually violate the Sacred Academy's rules and interfere in the conflict between students? The Grand Dean walked over and spoke to the Soul Academy's head teacher with a displeased expression. The Soul Academy's head teacher's expression was somewhat unsightly. I didn't want to interfere in the conflict between students. It was Luo Qingtong who spoke rudely to me first. Before he could finish speaking, the Grand Dean interrupted him. We all heard what you said just now. Luo Qingtong's words weren't pleasant to hear, but she wasn't wrong. You, on the other hand, if you hadn't interfered in the fight between the students, how could she have talked back to you? The Grand Supreme Dean's words were filled with anger. When the Soul Institute Grand Master heard this, he was speechless. Just now, he really wanted to intervene in the matter between Luo Qingtong and the Dragon Group. Moreover, he was prepared to use Luo Qingtong's disrespect to him as an excuse to force the other party to retreat. He didn't expect that the Grand Supreme Dean and the others would see everything. Looking at the group of instructors behind the Grand Supreme Dean, his expression turned ugly. Yes, I know my mistake, Grand Supreme Dean. Chapter 925. Alright, since you know that you're in the wrong. From today onwards, half of your cultivation resources will be deducted as compensation to Luo Qingtong. Treat it as your punishment for attacking her. The Grand Supreme Dean glanced at Yi Qianxian's icy expression and couldn't help but tremble. Then he spoke to the Soul Institute's headmaster. Yes. The Soul Institute's headmaster gritted his teeth. His expression was extremely ugly. Not only did he fail to teach her a lesson, he even had his resources deducted. This was simply going for wool and coming home shorn. Su Jinhue screamed at the top of her lungs. Why? Luo Qingtong also contradicted my father. Why do we have to compensate her? Why? Su Jinhue was extremely angry. Not only did they fail to teach Luo Qingtong a lesson, they even had to give her half of their cultivation resources as punishment? Her father was the Soul Institute's headmaster, and the amount of cultivation resources he received every day was astonishing. Half of the resources were going to benefit Luo Qingtong? Su Jinhue couldn't accept this fact. Your father is the Soul Institute's headmaster, so he should set an example. The Grand Supreme Dean snorted. Su Jinhue wanted to say something, but Luo Qingtong's voice faintly rang out. Tong Hu, it's almost 4 hours away from noon. What exactly do you want to do? Has your dragon group thought about it? Luo Qingtong's words instantly pulled everyone's attention back. When Su Jinhue heard Luo Qingtong's words, her face instantly turned pale. She suddenly remembered the reason why her father and Luo Qingtong had a conflict. It was all because Luo Qingtong wanted them to kneel and apologize to Su Xiaoxiao and the others. Su Jinhue's face turned pale at the thought of this. She wanted to speak up for her father, but she forgot about it. Father. She cried out and hugged the Soul Institute's headmaster's arm tightly in fear. However, in front of so many people, the Soul Institute's headmaster couldn't protect her like before. The Grand Supreme Dean and the others wouldn't allow it. Su Jinhue's face was ghastly pale. Tong Hu and the others also looked terrible. Luo Qingtong had something on them, so they couldn't help but lower their heads. Soon it would be 4 hours. At that time, the amount of resources that needed to be compensated would double again. More importantly, who knew what other conditions Luo Qingtong would come up with? With that thought in mind, Tiger Cub gritted his teeth and shouted, "We'll kneel." No, I won't kneel. Su Jinhue's voice was so sharp that it almost pierced through the void. Asking her to kneel in front of Su Xiaoxiao and the others was more unbearable than killing her. On what basis? Her status was higher than his and her background was stronger than his. In the past, Su Xiaoxiao and the others could only look up to her with indignation. They couldn't do anything to her at all. Now she had to kneel to them? No, she would never. However, she had no choice but to say no. Luo Qingtong didn't even allow herself to do anything. Seeing that time was running out, Tiger Cub had already ordered people to drag Su Jinhue over. Headmaster. I'm sorry. When Tiger Cub said this, he was about to vomit blood. This was the Soul Institute's headmaster. Usually, he had to be respectful when he saw him. But now, for Luo Qingtong's request, he had no choice but to offend him. He had to personally pull Su Jinyue away from him and force her to kneel. This was a huge grudge. But he had no choice. Chapter 926. Tong, who was so angry he wanted to vomit blood. Bang! Su Jinyue was dragged over by the dragon regiment and pressed against the ground. She kowtowed heavily to Luo Qingtong. At the same time, Yuanma was also forced to kneel and kowtow to Luo Qingtong. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Faint traces of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Yuanma's heart was filled with humiliation. This was the second time he was forced to kowtow to someone. The first time was in the Blackfield subsidy, in front of evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Now, he was bowing to people like Su Xiaoxiao in front of everyone from the sacred institution. How could those people be worthy of him bowing? Especially the Ling siblings. Together with evil Dr. Ghost Eye, they destroyed the royal family of Tianyu, yet he still had to kowtow to them? Yuanma could already imagine that after today, he would become the laughingstock of the empire of Qin's sacred institution. His revenge failed and he was taught a lesson. Luo Qingtong. He gritted his teeth, unaware of the rusty taste in his mouth. That woman was supposed to be his wife. She should be on his side. Why did she have to mix with the Ling siblings and evil Dr. Ghost Eye? Even if he had made a mistake and neglected her, she was still his fiancée, wasn't she? Didn't she like him? She liked him so much back then. Yuanma couldn't tell what he was feeling right now. He had a love-hate relationship with Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong didn't have time to read his thoughts. From the moment she transmigrated to this world, the Luo Qingtong who liked Yuanma was already dead. It was Yuanma's fault. Bang! Seeing his daughter and beloved disciple forced to kneel, the Soul Institute's head teacher's face darkened like the bottom of a pot that had just been cooked. He waved his sleeves and pulled Yuanma and Su Jinyue to his side. Then, he waved his sleeves and strode away with the two of them. At the same time, Tiger Cub and the others also knelt before Luo Qingtong and the others. He clenched his teeth and kowtowed once before shouting sternly, "Luo Qingtong, we fulfilled all of your conditions. I will send the compensation to your courtyard very soon. Hurry up and remove the restrictions on our dragon group in the training ground." Tiger Cub was so angry that his body was trembling. He had never experienced such great humiliation before. Luo Qingtong had gone too far. Once he passed this trial, he would definitely make the other party pay the price. What's the hurry? Luo Qingtong looked at them indifferently, her voice indescribably calm. Take a look at the account book first. Pay up the resources first. Otherwise, I'm afraid that you won't be able to take it and renege on your debt. When Luo Qingtong said this, there was a hint of slyness in her tone. Yi Qianxian, who was familiar with Luo Qingtong, tilted his head slightly and glanced at her. Chapter 927. How can there be so much? Tong, who stared at the account books in front of him in disbelief. It's just this much. Luo Qingtong looked at him and raised her eyebrows. She lifted her hand and touched the patterns on her sleeves. These are the resources that you stole from the Heavenly Demon Group. Luo Qingtong emphasized the words Heavenly Demon Group. Upon hearing this, the faces of Tong Hu and the others instantly turned green. What the hell? Heavenly Demon Group. The group of people from the Dragon Group finally recalled that when Luo Qingtong told them that she had indeed created a force, and that was the name of the force. They thought it was a joke. At that time, many people joined the Heavenly Demon Group. But, didn't they all quit? Tong Hu yelled in exasperation. Those people, when Luo Qingtong sent people to destroy the Dragon Group's signboard, did they not quit the Heavenly Demon Group in fear? Under such circumstances, why should they still compensate for the resources? Did Luo Qingtong really think that the Dragon Group was a soft persimmon that could be blackmailed? Luo Qingtong, you're breaking the rules. He could totally deny it. He could ask the mentors to do something about this. Grand Principal. Luo Qingtong is blackmailing us. This was no longer within the scope of a normal fight between students. According to Luo Qingtong's words, didn't she mean that she could even go to the heavens? The Grand Principal looked at Luo Qingtong. Although Yi Qianxian was watching from the side, there were so many people in the holy court that it was unacceptable to break the rules. It was difficult for him to do so. The Grand Principal looked helpless. Qingtong girl? Don't worry, Grand Principal. I won't break the rules. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at Tong Hu. They did leave the Heavenly Demon Group, but as the price for leaving before the deadline, their resources all belong to the Heavenly Demon Group. In other words, these resources all belong to me now. Tong Hu, I'm asking you for these resources, right? Luo Qingtong's words silenced Tiger Cub and the others. Everyone around was dumbfounded. As for those who had once joined Luo Qingtong's Heavenly Demon Group with evil intentions, but were later afraid of Luo Qingtong's revenge, they were so regretful that their intestines turned green. Oh my God! My land! If they had known that Luo Qingtong was so powerful that she could force the dragon regiment to bow their heads, they wouldn't have left the regiment. Not only would they be able to retrieve all the resources that had been accumulated over the years, they would even be able to double the amount. No way. Their hearts hurt so much. A group of people who had taken advantage of the situation and harbored evil intentions clutched their chests. They were so regretful that they almost had a heart attack. As for Tong Hu and the others, their faces turned pale. Especially Tong Hu. He roughly calculated the amount of resources that he and the others would have to pay, and his legs turned to jelly and he almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, the people beside him reached out to support him, and he managed to stabilize himself without making a fool of himself. Luo Qingtong. He gritted his teeth and looked at the beautiful girl opposite him as if he was looking at a man-eating monster. You're robbing us. Tong Hu's words were practically squeezed out from between his teeth. With such a large amount, the resources that the Dragon Regiment had dug up over the years would have to be compensated by more than half. It was as if they were all working for Luo Qingtong. She thought about how she and the others had worked so hard all these years and carried so much notoriety. In the end, it all benefited Luo Qingtong. Chapter 928. That's where you're wrong. Luo Qingtong looked at him innocently. The girl's face was so beautiful that it could topple cities. She looked at them innocently, and her aura was pure and domineering, devilish and otherworldly. You're the ones who robbed me. I'm just taking back what you've stolen and asking for a little compensation. How can you say that I'm robbing you? Luo Qingtong looked at them with a "you should read more books if you don't know much" expression. She pouted and said, "This should be called returning things to their rightful owners." Tong Hu and the rest were speechless from her words. They wanted to say something else, but Luo Qingtong couldn't be bothered to waste time with them. There's only 200 breaths left until 4 hours are up. Are you guys from the Dragon Group going to give it to me or not? If you're not giving it to me, then we'll part ways here. Of course, don't even think about entering this training ground. If you want to give it to me, then hurry up. Otherwise, if it's more than 4 hours, I'll double it. Luo Qingtong didn't need to say the last 3 words. Tong Hu and the rest knew. Thinking about the amount of resources they had to pay, it was already a sky-high price. If they let the other party double it, they didn't want to live anymore. With that thought in mind, Tong Hu hurriedly stopped Luo Qingtong from saying her last sentence. Give. We'll give. Tong Hu clenched his teeth so hard that his mouth was full of blood. He pointed at Luo Qingtong with a trembling finger. Then he fiercely ordered his subordinates from the Dragon Group. Go and bring out the resources that our Dragon Group has accumulated over the years. Give it to Luo Qingtong. When he said the girl's name, Tong Hu clenched his teeth so hard that they creaked. It was as if he wanted to chew up Luo Qingtong and swallow her whole. Yes. The members of the Dragon Group didn't dare to delay. Someone immediately left and headed towards the Dragon Group's encampment. He counted all the resources that the Dragon Group had plundered over the years and then returned to the encampment after counting the number that Luo Qingtong wanted. Tong Hu handed over the resources to Luo Qingtong in front of everyone, then gritted his teeth and said, "Can you remove the restrictions on the Heavenly Hall's training ground now?" "That's enough." Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows as she spoke. She turned around and walked towards the main training grounds of the Sky Palace Hall that she had visited before. Following the steps that she had taken to inject her qi into the core formation, she withdrew all her qi. After doing all this, Luo Qingtong clapped her hands and returned to the entrance of the Sky Temple's training ground where she was confronting the Dragon Regiment members. Seeing Luo Qingtong's actions, Tiger Cub ordered a member of the Dragon Group beside him, "Go and take a look." Chapter 929. The great teacher of the array faculty was also looking at Luo Qingtong with great interest. When he discovered that the Sky Hall's cultivation array was not damaged in any way, but the Dragon Regiment was seen as intruders, he guessed that Luo Qingtong must have done something to the array faculty. But what he couldn't figure out was how the young girl had done it. This was really strange. The great teacher of the array faculty was also capable of doing what Luo Qingtong had done. But that was because he was extremely familiar with these array faculty. But Luo Qingtong wasn't like that. How did she do it? He really didn't know. Let's go. After confirming that there was no problem with the array faculty, Tong Hu couldn't stay here any longer. He led the group in a seemingly aggressive manner, but in reality, they were leaving with their tails between their legs. Looking at their departing figures, Su Xiaoxiao and the rest were already extremely excited. They immediately swarmed in front of Luo Qingtong and shouted excitedly, "Boss! We really did it!" The Dragon Regiment's people really bowed their heads. "Boss, you're the best! Boss, you're too awesome!" The group of people chattered and crowded around Luo Qingtong tightly. Instead, they pushed Yi Qianxian, who was originally standing beside Luo Qingtong, to the side. Yi Qianxian, who was pushed to the side, looked at all of this with a dark expression. He had originally wanted to use this opportunity to talk to Luo Qingtong and let her familiarize herself with his identity. But now it was all messed up by these people. The Honorable Lord was extremely unhappy. He looked coldly at this group of people who had snatched his treasure. If these people weren't Luo Qingtong's subordinates, he would have slapped them with his sleeves and sent them flying as far as possible. Looking at Yi Qianxian's dark expression, the Grand Supreme Dean's lips twitched. He hurriedly stepped forward and said, "All right, we'll celebrate your matter later. I have something to announce." This cough. The Grand Dean couldn't help but cough lightly when he spoke up to hear. "Oh no, I forgot to ask Yi Qianxian for his name." Just as he was thinking this, he heard Yi Qianxian's cold and indifferent voice. "Yi Luo." Using his and Luo Qingtong's surnames as their names, Yi Qianxian liked the feeling of being associated with Luo Qingtong, even if it was just a name. Cough. "Instructor Yi Luo is your incoming chief instructor. In the future, I'll be responsible for all of your actual combat training." The Grand Supreme Dean hurriedly followed up on Yi Qianxian's words. "Teacher Yi Luo is very powerful. Don't miss this opportunity. If I can be selected by him to become his closed-door student, it wouldn't be impossible for me to advance by a whole realm in a month." As soon as the Grand Supreme Dean spoke, the eyes of the students of the Empire of Qin lit up as they looked at Yi Qianxian. To be able to make the Grand Supreme Dean say "very powerful," the other party's strength was definitely not ordinary. Furthermore, he could allow their strength to advance by a whole realm in a month. This wasn't something that could be casually said. Everyone didn't believe it, but the Grand Supreme Dean wouldn't joke about this. In other words, the other party could really do it? The group of people looked at Yi Qianxian and almost couldn't wait to rush forward and beg him to accept them as his closed-door student. If they could receive his personal guidance, would they still be afraid of not being able to advance their strength? Chapter 930. Raise her power by a whole realm in a month? If he could really do that, then he would be amazing. Luo Qingtong thought about her bet with Yuanma. She had to win. And she had to win beautifully so that Yuanma would be speechless and unable to find any reason to reject the engagement token. In that case, her strength must be raised. Then she had to win against Yuanma fair and square. At the same time, she had to put an end to the matter between the previous host and Yuanma. The previous Luo Qingtong really loved Yuanma. She loved him so much that she kept cultivating just to catch up to Yuanma and become a woman worthy of him. She loved him so much that she could endure the humiliation from the Tianyu royal family. She loved him so much that she could endure Yuanma's coldness and disregard. It wasn't that she didn't know that Yuanma looked down on her. However, she thought that when her strength increased, she would be able to change this point. She put all the blame on herself. Until she was set up by Yu Wenxue and Luo Xining and was killed when she was trying to break through in the Nine Magi Mountain. Before she died, what the previous host couldn't accept the most was that Yuanma knew everything but didn't stop it. He didn't even protect her. She had wanted to break off the engagement. He didn't agree. She thought that he had her in his heart and that as long as she worked hard, there would be results. If Yuanma hadn't given her such an obsession, she wouldn't have waited so foolishly. She could have lived more proudly. But Yuanma refused to break off the engagement and didn't protect her. He made her and the Luo family suffer from the Tianyu royal family's humiliation. In the end, she was set up in the Nine Magi Mountain and was almost gang-raped to death by Yu Wenxue and Luo Xining's people. How could the previous host accept this? Her only wish before she died was for Luo Qingtong to help her suppress Yuanma. Let the latter have a taste of being suppressed and humiliated. Yuanma used to look down on her and the Luo family. He looked down on her hard work and the Luo family's efforts. Since that was the case, she would let him have a taste of being looked down on and disdained. Luo Qingtong would definitely fulfill this wish of his. Therefore Luo Qingtong wouldn't use her eye technique or the heaven-conquering art that Yi Qianxian had taught her. She wanted to openly represent Luo Qingtong, represent the former girl, and trample Yuanma under her feet. Strip him of his genius halo. Shatter his conceit and pride. She wanted to return all the contempt he had for her and the Luo family. Luo Qingtong was still thinking of asking Ma Chenyi if the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin had any way to increase her strength quickly after dealing with the dragon group. No matter how dangerous it was, it didn't matter. In any case, Luo Qingtong was not afraid of danger. She was only afraid that her strength would not rise fast enough, and that it would not be stable enough. Now, this chief instructor, the Grand Dean, said that he could raise a student's strength by a large realm within a month? Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at the cold man opposite her. She said, "Chief instructor can raise a person's strength by a large realm within a month? He can raise a person from the martial emperor realm to the martial emperor realm?" Once Luo Qingtong said that, the surrounding people were shocked. They all thought of the bet between Luo Qingtong and Yuanma. Yuanma's strength was at the martial emperor realm. Although he had just entered the martial emperor realm, he had a rare soul imprint spiritual body. Chapter 931. Although his strength is only at the initial stage of martial emperor realm, his final strength is likely to reach the middle stage of martial emperor realm. In this kind of situation, if Luo Qingtong's strength is not at the martial emperor realm, it is almost impossible for her to win against Yuanma. Of course you can. As long as you have enough perception. Yi Qianxian's expression is indifferent. Is that so? Looking at the man's pair of deep black eyes, Luo Qingtong suddenly smiles. What I don't lack the most is perception. If these words were said by someone else, it would be extremely arrogant and conceited. But when Luo Qingtong said it, she had absolute confidence. Her pair of blood-red eyes can see through too many things. Perception, this kind of thing, is it very difficult to see through the situation? But, how do I know that chief instructor is telling the truth? Whether it is true or not, you will know when you try it yourself. Yi Qianxian looks at the crafty little fox in front of him. This woman has always been so crafty. Obviously she is already tempted and wants to become his student, but she is deliberately provoking him so that he will take the initiative to take her as his student. However, Yi Qianxian's goal is Luo Qingtong. This woman, if I don't keep an eye on her, I won't feel at ease. Previously when he left here to go back to that side, this woman attracted a rotten peach blossom for him. Thinking of when Xuanhuan came to the Black Field and said that he is in love with this woman and wants him to fulfill his wish, Yi Qianxian's expression darkens. At the same time, in a splendid mountain gate of the southern region, in a gorgeous palace, a devilish man wearing purple clothes is standing at the entrance of the palace. He raises his hand and gently caresses the tear mole at the corner of his eye while listening to his subordinate's report. Still can't find any news about evil Dr. Gui Tong? Yu Sihuang frowns, his devilish handsome face looks at the person kneeling below him. Yes. The person kneeling on the ground reports. Our people are currently unable to enter any of the Blackfield cities in the eastern region. Once someone enters they will be discovered. Then he would be thrown out. As the man spoke, he silently wiped away the sweat in his heart. He had no idea how his sect leader had offended the supreme martial artist of the Blackfield. He actually made the latter issue a ban on the people of the Imperial sect and the 3 islands and 7 lands, forbidding them from entering the Blackfield. Last time the sect leader almost came back injured. He wondered if it was because of this incident. Just as he was thinking this, he heard his sect master say, "Yi Qianxian sure is quick to act." It directly blocked his way of getting information from the Blackfield. However, the Blackfield was not the only place to gather information in the entire eastern region. Thinking like this, Yu Sihuang suddenly raised his finger and lightly tapped the tear in his eye. A devilish smile appeared on his face. "Yi Qianxian, you're in such a hurry because you're afraid that I'll snatch that person away, right? To be able to make the underworld supreme of the Blackfield so unconfident, does it mean that he actually still has a chance?" Thinking like this, Yu Sihuang's mind floated to Luo Qingtong's graceful bearing in that canyon. That tear mole, under the contrast of his smile, seemed even more enchanting and charming. At this moment, a protector of the Imperial sect suddenly rushed in from the outside. "Not good. Sect leader, the young miss has disappeared. She only left you a letter saying..." Chapter 932. After the protector finished speaking, Yu Sihuang also opened the letter in his hand, and a line of words instantly jumped out. "Brother, you don't have to look for me. Just wait for me to help you find your future bride. Under that line of words, there was also a drawing of a mischievous and cute girl with a grimace. Yu Xingqi. Seeing this line of words and that grimace, Yu Xihuang's forehead instantly burst with blue veins. He didn't have the slightest bit of other brothers' expression when they heard that their sister was so considerate and considerate. Not for anything else, Yu Xingqi, that little witch, had always liked to make things difficult for him. She was two-faced and cunning. It was good enough that she didn't help him mess things up, but he still expected her to help him. Leave immediately and prepare to go to the eastern domain. In addition, send a message to the people in the Black Field, tell Xianxia to be careful. There are remnants of Silver Sword's people who escaped. Maybe they will find trouble with evil Dr. Gui Tong. Yu Xihuang originally wanted to use this news to win the favor of the beauty, and also to express his concern and protection to Luo Qingtong. In the end, when he went to the Black Field, he was almost left there by Yi Qianxian. Naturally, he forgot to mention this matter. At this time, he could only send a message to the Black Field, and let Yi Qianxian pass it to Luo Qingtong on his behalf. That man got lucky. Yes. A group of people from the imperial sect received the order and immediately set off. At the entrance of the Empire of Qin's holy courtyard, a young girl wearing a light blue dress with two buns on her head, holding a small white cat in her arms, raised her head and looked at the four words, "The Empire of Qin's holy courtyard," in front of her, her face revealing an extremely sweet and cute smile. "Dudu, we're here." She stroked the little white cat in her arms and said. The young girl's voice was clear and bright, revealing an indescribable feeling of joy. "Brother, that idiot doesn't even know what a roundabout is. If we can't find evil Dr. Gui Tong, we can start from the people around her." The girl smiled sweetly and skipped toward the gate of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. "Even if we can't do anything to Mingzun in the Black Field, we still have the people from the royal family of Tianyu that she fought before. It's said that the two most promising juniors of Ling clan are in Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. One of them is called Luo Qingtong, the future daughter-in-law of the royal family of Tianyu. Aren't they the best way to find evil Dr. Ghost Eyes? Especially that Luo Qingtong. I heard that evil Dr. Gui Tong has a good relationship with her Luo clan. They might be one of the reasons why Tianyu's royal family was destroyed. Under such circumstances, it'll be easier to find evil Dr. Ghost Eye if we follow him." "Silly brother, I told him that he's dumber than me and not as smart as me, but he's still not convinced," Yu Xingqi said as he bounced towards the entrance of the Empire of Qin's holy court. "Stop. This is an important place of the holy court. Outsiders are not allowed to trespass." Seeing that Yu Xingqi was just a child, the guards outside the holy court of the Empire of Qin stopped her without any hesitation. Yu Xingqi tilted her head and looked at them, then suddenly smiled. Boom. Suddenly, a powerful aura exploded around her. "Go and tell the old men of the holy court that I want to enter Martial Emperor realm." Seeing the powerful aura exploding from her body, the guards of the holy court of the Empire of Qin were dumbfounded. The young girl in front of them seemed to be only 12 or 13 years old. Chapter 933. Oh my God! Which family did this genius come from? The group of people answered and hurriedly ran to the Sacred Institute. With her strength and ability, she could enter the Sacred Institute of the Empire of Qin without taking the exam and ignoring the enrollment time of the Sacred Institute. At the same time, in the Sacred Institute of the Empire of Qin, Luo Qingtong had received Yi Qianxian's personal permission to become his closed-door student. In addition to her, Xuanhu and the others had also become Yi Qianxian's closed-door students. Yi Qianxian seemed to choose all kinds of students in an eclectic manner. But in fact, he had become the chief instructor of the Sacred Institute because of Luo Qingtong. If it weren't for her, how could he, a dignified Hell Venerable, lower himself to teach students? The selection this time was naturally based on Luo Qingtong's considerations. Except for Su Xiaoxiao, who was a student of the Pharmaceutical Institute, all the people around Luo Qingtong had been chosen by him. In addition, he had also chosen several core members of the Gui Yuan group. In addition to some other students with excellent qualifications, Yi Qianxian had chosen a total of 20 closed-door students. There was no other way. The Grand Supreme Dean, that old fox, had grasped Yi Qianxian's intention to stay but didn't want Luo Qingtong to know. He had asked him to help the Sacred Institute train a few students. Anyway, if you train one, it's still training. It doesn't matter if you train a few more. This was what the Grand Supreme Dean had said shamelessly. What's more, that evil Dr. Kid is so shrewd. If you train only one of her, she may find out at any time. Otherwise she'll think you have other intentions. She won't give you a chance to get close to her. Don't blame me for not making arrangements for you." The Grand Supreme Dean's words successfully convinced Yi Qianxian. He coldly agreed to the Grand Supreme Dean's request. Anyway, except for Luo Qingtong, he wouldn't spend too much effort on the others. How much those people could learn and how much they could improve themselves would depend on themselves. At that time, the Grand Supreme Dean was overjoyed. The Blackfields Hell Venerable had come to train his students in person. Which sacred institution had such an honor? Given Yi Qianxian's strength and cultivation base, Yi Qianxian's strength and cultivation base were far superior to Yi Qianxian. While he was giving pointers to Luo Qingtong, he also casually gave some pointers to the other students. Those people would benefit immensely. Moreover, Yi Qianxian should at least give some pointers to the people around the evil doctor, right? It was as if the Grand Supreme Dean could already see his own student's strength soaring. As for Luo Qingtong, he was even less worried. Alas, it was indeed the right decision to trick the evil doctor into joining the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin. In front of him, Luo Qingtong had always been arrogant, willful, and cunning. It was rare for her to be so vigilant and angry. She looked very cute. It was rare to see Luo Qingtong like this. Yi Qianxian was not ready to give up. If I don't know how the energy in your body is circulating, how can I tailor a training plan for you? Or do you think it's so easy to raise from the martial emperor realm to the martial emperor realm within a month? Yi Qianxian's words made Luo Qingtong frown. Although she still felt uncomfortable, what he said was indeed reasonable. With this thought, Luo Qingtong immediately let go of Yi Qianxian's hand. "Okay, Chief Instructor, check it out." As she spoke, she circulated the energy in her body. Yi Qianxian's hand pressed on her back. Chapter 935. As Luo Qingtong's power revolved within her body, his palm began to wander around Luo Qingtong's back. Seeing that his hand was about to move to Luo Qingtong's waist, Luo Qingtong stopped the circulation of power within her body and grabbed his hand. "Chief Instructor, what are you doing?" Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian with a fake smile on her face. Was this man harassing her? Having experienced 2 lives, Luo Qingtong had seen such reckless people before. But those people, without exception, had all died very miserably. The only one who was spared was Yi Qianxian, that inhuman man. But that was the man she fancied. What right did this man in front of her have? So what if he was strong? So what if he was the chief instructor? Apart from the man she fancied, if anyone else dared to harass her like this, even if they were the emperor, she would let them know that she wasn't so easy to touch. Luo Qingtong's expression had already turned completely cold. The bloody light in her eyes was faintly discernible. Suddenly, her fingers seemed to touch something very hard in the other party's hand. Luo Qingtong subconsciously looked up, but didn't find anything. But where his fingers touched, the touch was very obvious. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. The moment she lowered her head, she activated her pupil technique. With just a glance at the other party's body and hand, Luo Qingtong was so angry that she laughed. "Yi Qianhu." The man's body was shrouded in a layer of faint energy light, wrapping his entire body. Luo Qingtong's pupil technique couldn't see too clearly, but this wasn't the most important thing. The important thing was that on the ring finger of his left hand, the place where the energy wrapped around the protrusion was in the shape of a ring. This damned man. Luo Qingtong clenched her teeth. It was normal that she couldn't see through the other party. But if she couldn't see through him and he had a hidden ring on his finger. On top of that, the other party had protected her in front of the Seoul Institute's great teacher. Now, he had specially said that he could raise her strength to the martial emperor realm within a month, taking her in as his student in a roundabout way. Furthermore, he had taken liberties with her just now. Luo Qingtong would be a fool if she still couldn't guess his identity. What was this man doing? Why are you role-playing for no reason? Instead of Ming Zun, he came here to be a teacher of the Saint Academy? Was he that free? But very quickly, Luo Qingtong remembered how Yi Qianxian aggressively ran over to ask her about xuanhuan. Did this man deliberately hide his identity and stay by her side to protect her? Luo Qingtong thought so. She was both angry and amused. At the same time, she felt a little sweet in her heart. And Yi Qianxian still didn't know that his identity had been seen through by Luo Qingtong. When he came, he specially wrapped his entire body with energy to ensure that Luo Qingtong couldn't see through him. At this moment, he looked at Luo Qingtong indifferently and said, "Naturally, it's to check the strength of the energy in your body." If it's not like this, how would I know which part of your body needs to be strengthened? Is that so? Luo Qingtong looked at Yi Qianxian and the corners of her lips curled up. This man spoke as if he was telling the truth. If Luo Qingtong hadn't already seen through his identity, she probably wouldn't have doubted his words. In reality, with this man's strength, why would he need to touch a little to check the strength of the energy in her body? Chapter 936. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong instantly gritted her teeth. This man, did he really like to act? She would fulfill his wish. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong's lips suddenly curved into a beautiful smile. So that's how it is. Then I've really misunderstood you, Chief Instructor. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she placed Yi Qianxian's hand back on her waist. With a faint smile on her lips, she looked at Yi Qianxian with an apologetic and embarrassed gaze. Since that's the case, please feel me properly, Chief Instructor. Remember, don't miss anything. Otherwise, if there's something wrong with the information you've investigated, I won't be able to smoothly improve my strength. Thank you, Instructor. As Luo Qingtong spoke, Yi Qianxian's heart instantly felt stifled. He looked at the apologetic expression on the young girl's face and his heart instantly felt stifled. He just wanted to tease this woman and see her explode in anger. However, when he saw that she wasn't angry and even allowed him to touch her, Yi Qianxian couldn't feel happy at all. Okay? He knew that Chief Instructor Yi Luo was him. However, Luo Qingtong and the others didn't know. This woman actually allowed another man to touch her? Even if he wanted to improve his strength, she wouldn't allow it. Yi Qianxian felt a wave of stifled anger in his heart. The stifling anger in his heart made his disguised face look even colder and colder. All right. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a word from between his teeth. If it weren't for the fact that he still remembered that his identity was Yi Qianxian and not Yi Qianxian, and that this wasn't the right place to be, he would have already pressed the young girl in front of him into his arms and ruthlessly punished her. This woman was really, coming here personally to stand guard was indeed the right thing to do. Otherwise, if she wasn't careful, who knew how many rotten peach blossoms she would attract? Yi Qianxian felt suffocated. He looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and continued to stroke her back. But this time he wasn't in the mood to tease Luo Qingtong like before. His movements were very fast and there wasn't a trace of ambiguity. Luo Qingtong snickered in her heart when she sensed the low pressure coming from the man's body. The smile on her lips grew wider and wider. She paused midway and asked Yi Qianxian, Chief Instructor, is my aura weak? Do you want to take a closer look? And here, Chief Instructor, when my aura passed by, my meridians were faintly swollen and painful. Was it because I was injured before? Do you want to touch more for me? As Luo Qingtong's voice continued to ring out, Yi Qianxian's face turned darker and darker. There was no other reason. When Luo Qingtong stopped, there were some places that just happened to be sensitive areas on the girl's body. If this was Yi Qianxian's original identity, he would of course be happy that Luo Qingtong was cooperating with him.